when you're doing stand-up comedy, you will bomb. There is no choice. There's no way to tell jokes and not fail at some point. But once you've done it and survived and realized it's not so bad, you kind of build a bit of a tolerance. You know you're going to survive this, so you can survive other things.
Hello, and welcome to Diverse, a Society of Women Engineers podcast. I'm your host, Marsha Lynn Bragg, Senior Editor of SWE Magazine. We're here live in We24 Diverse Podcast Studio, recording on-site at SWE's annual conference this year in Chicago. It's been a lovely turnout. We've had more than 20,000 folks attending the conference. It's been full of excitement and energy, and I'm glad to be a part of it this year. I'd like to introduce Kate Hensley, Associate Director of CRM Strategy at Collins Aerospace, who's joining me today to discuss how stand-up comedy has helped her in her STEM career. This is such a singular topic that we've never covered on a podcast, and I'm looking forward to learning more. Kate, welcome to Diverse.
Hi, thanks. Wow, that was quite an intro.
Good. Well, let me set the stage for a moment. Would you mind introducing yourself to our listeners and share what your career journey in engineering has looked like so far?
Well, it's definitely been a journey. So I have 18 years of experience in the aerospace industry. I started out of college, and I actually started at a company called Sikorsky Aircraft, a helicopter manufacturer. And since then, I've bounced around in all different types of roles. I've been an engineering manager for a global technical support team. I managed a flight test group in Brazil. I also worked in the Middle East, helping set up a joint venture, and spent a couple of years in Amsterdam supporting Air France KLM. So those are the highlights. I've had a lot of opportunities and done a lot of things. Some better than others.
Pretty much a highlight indeed in terms of your travel, international, and the work that you're doing. Tell me how you got into STEM.
Well, that is kind of a funny story. So when I was in college, I did not know what I wanted to do. So the mandate from my family was do something to get hired. So I took hard courses, but couldn't decide on a degree. And I found out about this scholarship program for industrial engineers where they were sending IEs to Brazil. Full ride. You got to go spend a semester learning Portuguese and taking classes. And I really wanted to go to Brazil. So I changed my major to industrial engineering, and that is how I ended up in engineering. Yeah.
Sometimes the routes that we take to find the career that we want might just take us abroad.
Yeah. Well, I knew I wanted to get more international experience. I had studied language, so I kind of took an alternate path. I will say that my path wasn't the most direct. I did not graduate in 4 years, but it was definitely a good one for me. It made me stand out when I went into the job market.
I'm sure. Tell me how you transitioned from industrial engineering into aerospace. They don't seem to be much of a connection.
Well, you see, you're at an engineering conference, so you don't know. It actually does. Okay. Industrial engineering is a very broad field, and it actually kind of touches all aspects of both engineering, operations, supply chain, and that ended up being a pretty good fit for me because you really get to kind of see the whole picture when you're implementing something. But to be quite honest, when I graduated, I was just wanting a job really bad. So I was interviewing. I went to one version of a job fair, probably 7 months before I graduated, and was the most aggressive person in trying to find a new job. So I found a company that wanted to hire me, and I had a job offer, I think, 8 months before I graduated. So yeah, that's how it happened to be an aerospace company.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I think our listeners would be pleased to know that the industrial engineering that you talked about, being that it's a broad field, during the conference, I'm sure a number of students would be glad to know that they have opportunities, and it's not just a specific field of engineering, but that it's broad and they can jump into anything.
I will say that is probably the coolest part about going into engineering, especially when you're a college student, is that the reality is most companies, especially large companies, love to hire engineers, even for non-engineer type roles. They'll hire you for business roles, they'll hire you for quality, they'll hire you for pretty much anything. Because the degree's so hard, they know that you're going to be able to do a lot. It doesn't work the other way. Business majors can't do engineering jobs. So I found that I've been able to take that and kind of leverage it, you know.
I was just going to ask you, could my communications degree get me a job with an engineering company?
Well, how about this? We do need help with communications. We are not the best at that. So I would say it's probably a skill set that's needed.
Well, with that, let's just jump right into another aspect of your life, and that's the comedy side.
Oh boy.
What drew you into the world of comedy, and why don't you start sharing about what that looked like for you?
Well, I've always had an interest in stand-up, but I never really had the confidence to do it. I always thought that, you know, it's something that you had to have a certain thing, a certain talent. There was things I was missing, right? So first thing I did is I hired a babysitter because I'm a mom and I needed some time off. And I took a class because I figured it was this complicated thing that I needed to understand. And the class was amazing, and I got to learn from real comics who actually do these things for a living and get to connect and see what it really takes, and I just loved it. That being said, I'm very new. Comedy is one of those things you can do for a whole life and always improve. So I'm definitely a newbie in it, but I'm really enjoying it.
You want to name drop a little bit? You said you took a class. Where'd you go? And some of the...
Well, if anyone is from Raleigh, North Carolina, out there in the podcast world, there's a comedy club called Charlie Goodnights, and they occasionally offer courses, which are great. But actually, so I live in Raleigh, and it's got an amazing comedy scene. I did not know it but there's all of these local comics who are incredibly talented and produce shows, and they're all awesome. They accepted me as a single working mom doing this on the side, and it's been a lot of fun.
So from the time you started, you said you're very new at this.
I'm new.
Have you determined yet what kind of comedy you want to do?
Good. I want to do good comedy. Not bad comedy.
I mean, like a genre or something like that.
The best, any comedian will tell you the best kind of comedy is the one that's authentic, that's kind of your perspective, your version on things. You don't want to curate to a specific group. So my goal is to be as real and honest as I can and try to put my own spin on whatever I'm doing. But that being said, sometimes I bomb. And sometimes my humor does not land with the audience. But, you got to keep trying.
So when you were taking your classes, how long was your class? And then from that point, when did you decide I'm ready to hit the stage?
Well, I think what the class really did is just demystify the whole process. Because I thought there was just some level of, preparedness or skill set you needed to do to get on stage. But then I saw the people doing it, and I realized it really is just trying and seeing how it goes. So it was a 6-week course, and luckily I live in a place that has open mics and opportunities to get on stage every night of the week. Not that I have the opportunity to get out of my house every night of the week, but when I do, I get the chance to go talk.
Do you remember the first joke?
No. Not at all. And it was probably pretty bad, so I wouldn't repeat it, even if I did remember it.
All right, Kate, let's shift gears again.
Okay.
Get into a little bit more about your day job. Let us know what, in your opinion, what are some of the biggest parallels that you have found between comedy and your STEM career?
Some of the biggest parallels is that there are a lot of men in both, not so many ladies. And I've also found that men who typically go into either field tend to think very highly of themselves. Guys who are comics tend sometimes to have a little bit more ego, and a guy engineer thinks he's probably pretty smart. Women are different. We tend to be a little bit more humble in our approach. We want to know more things ahead of time. We want more detail. So that's definitely true. But the biggest parallel I've found within my career is comedy is really about connecting and communication and getting to kind of the human part of things, and that translates in any job, in my opinion. So it helps.
Now, speaking of communication, we understand that executive communication can be somewhat daunting. What are some common mistakes engineers make when communicating with leadership, and how can the tools you've learned in comedy help our listeners deal with some of these mistakes?
Well, I actually had an amazing session here that goes over this in great detail, but I will give you the highlights. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. I'm bragging. This is me bragging. I'm very excited to speak at SWE this year. I'd say one of the first things that's really easy and also really obvious is too much detail. Comics specifically know that you need to get to the joke quickly. You need to get to the funny. You know, the story, the lines before it all has to add certain value. So when you're going into an executive communication, they want you to take 50 pages of information and boil it down to 3 things, because they just can't process all of that detail. So I think the big skill set that parallels with both is knowing how to boil things down to the most important part. But that's one of the things.
Okay. Failure is also a part of both comedy and engineering. So based on your experiences, what advice do you have for other women in STEM on how to recover from setbacks?
Well, I'd say first, whatever you think the impact of your failure is, the fear that's sort of driving you, it's never as bad as you think. When you're doing stand-up comedy, you will bomb. There is no choice. There's no way to tell jokes and not fail at some point. But once you've done it and survived and realized it's not so bad, you kind of build a bit of a tolerance. You know you're going to survive this, so you can survive other things. I think failure is just part of being human or a professional or an engineer or anyone. But learning that you're going to survive it is probably the most important part. And life is long. I mean, my career has definitely taken ups and downs, and I have definitely failed in spectacular fashion in some instances, but I'm still here. Yeah.
So when you think of the failures, only you can determine what that is. What keeps you going? Both as an engineer and then as a very new comic. You could easily say, one bad night or one bad time at the open mic, I'm done. But what keeps you going? What makes you want to continue to do this?
Well, I think one of the things that helps the knowledge is that I know I can get better. So if I do something and it doesn't work out, as a comic, I tell a joke that doesn't hit. I can change the joke. I can, say it in a different way or try something new. I think understanding there's iteration to failure, and it isn't like final. Also, the fact that it kind of makes you a better comic when you tell a joke and it doesn't work and you learn how to fix it. Same goes with your professional career, right? The ability to learn, to have that mindset of I can take in information, I can pivot, I can change. It's a skill, and not everybody has it, right? So I think failure is a good teacher. It can give you direction on how you can do better.
Well, before we wrap up, Are there any closing thoughts you'd like to have, or is there anything you'd like to share that I didn't ask you about?
Sure. I'd say the thing I wish somebody had told me when I was a little bitty baby engineer starting out is we can be more than one thing. I really loved doing creative things, performing, comedy, arts, all kinds of stuff, but I really took a break when I started my career because in my head you could really only do one well, right? Like for that my identity was engineering and that's the path I took. But I think there's a lot of good things of pursuing both. Like we can be engineers and we can be painters, or we could be engineers and singers, or we could be engineers and I don't know, underwater basket weavers, whatever the heck, feeds your soul. I think it's important to nurture those parts of yourself and know that we're not just one thing.
Mm-hmm. Not just one-dimensional, not just, laser focused on something.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you do allow yourself to be that, it can make you a better engineer, a better person, As soon as I started trying stand-up comedy, I saw so many things, so many parallels that helped me just within my job, be it communication, better connecting with people, telling a story, knowing how to make a joke without getting in trouble. There were things that helped me. So, yeah, I would just encourage everyone that if you've got those other passions to, don't necessarily put them on pause for as long as I did.
Okay. I was hoping to get a joke from you, but
I know, but you gotta set me up a little bit. Well, how about I interview you a little?
Oh, well, I don't think I'm that funny, so
but those are the best kind. Yeah. All right.
This is about you, not about me.
I know, but you see, the humor comes from where you're at.
Okay, if you say so.
Yeah. I could do a few things, but as we discussed before this podcast, it might get me in trouble.
Well, we don't want that.
Yeah, we don't want that. We don't want to get in trouble. Thank you to Collins Aerospace for sending me here. I appreciate it. I've been very good.
And we thank you for your time and sharing with us today as well, Kate.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. I'm Marsha Bragg, live at WE24. And from all of us at SWE, thanks for listening.